Okay, it's time to call this meeting to order, and we're going to start with a prayer led by Art Gentry. Art has done some extensive preparation for this prayer, so you'll have to we'll have to listen carefully here. All right.
Heavenly Father, grant us your guidance and inspire us in these days of discord and confusion. Let us remember to respect life in all its conditions, so no one has need to cry out, as your Son, our Lord Jesus Christ, did on the cross, my God, why have you forsaken me? Therefore, may we always will the good of others for your greater honor and glory. Amen.
Amen. Okay, and I believe the oldest veteran present is Ellen Weldon tonight. If anybody wants to challenge that, I'll listen to that challenge. But if not, Ellen, if you would lead us in a flag salute, we have a little flag on the table.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Alan, were you in the Air Force or Navy or
Air Force?
Air Force. And
I know you were a Marine.
I know that. Thank you. All right. And what years were you in, Alan?
Oh, it's a while back.
Okay, I understand that.
It was in the late 60s.
Late 60s. Okay.
It was after 65, which was Dave Young, if you remember.
That's when my older brothers went in.
And it was
I knew you'd be around.
went in about the time of, if you remember, the Tet Offensive.
Tet Offensive, yes.
And it was actually in 71.
Wow. Okay. Very good.
That's only one term.
Well, you were in during the same time my older brothers were in the war in Vietnam. All three of them were. Okay. I'd like to do a patriotic song, but with a small group, I think it's probably best just to do God Bless America. Can we do that? God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above. From the mountains to the prairie, to the oceans white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home. Well, we did quite well, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, we'll give yourself a hand there. It was good. Okay, so tonight we have one candidate here that I see. I should say real quickly, the minutes are published on the YouTube video, and the link to that YouTube video is item D on your agenda if you want to see it, or just go to Google and you can Google it and bring it up. The treasurer's report is printed on the back side. I do need a quick motion to approve, and we can move right on to getting Jim up here. Do we have such a motion? Anybody want to approve that? Okay, Art Gentry is making a motion to approve the treasurer's report as printed. Do I have a second on that? I have a second over here with Gerald, right? Jim, I'm sorry, Jim. Okay, so all in favor signify by saying aye. All right, all opposed, same sign. We got a treasurer's report approved. Okay, Jim Howell, why don't you come on up, and you have it until about 7:20 or so, or 7, somewhere around there.
Man, that's gonna be.
You're cutting
me off. Just kidding.
Okay, no,
I can talk. No, I'm just kidding. With
I can leave you up there actually until 7:37. That's the absolute.
We'll see how this goes. Let's do 7. Let's get in that range, and then you can start going like this.
Okay, fair enough. All right. It's all yours. You can have it.
All right. Well, thank you guys for being here tonight.
You might want to stand in front of the
screen. All right.
He's shooting you for the video.
Ow.
So you're speaking to more than what's here.
All right. Well, anyway, thank you all for being here tonight. My name is Jim Howell, Sedgwick County Commissioner, finishing up my first term. I do represent the southeast part of Sedgwick County, so I just talked with one a minute ago. Let me explain that more carefully. If you live east of the river or south of Kellogg, you're probably in my district. And it is 1/5 of the county. It does include all of Derby, all of Mulvane that's in Sedgwick County, because Mulvane's on the county line, okay? And all the parts of southeast Wichita, including things like McConnell Air Force Base, Hilltop, Plainview, Oak Lawn, Sunview, and basically just think about the lines of Kellogg and the river if you're in that area. So basically that's it. I was a former state legislator. I ran for this position because a couple of things were going on in the county that got my attention. I'll get to that in just a minute. Let me back up just a little bit here. I have lived in southeast Sedgwick County pretty much my entire life. I moved here when I was in the 2nd grade, and before that my parents went all over the place. I was born in Colorado, lived in Salina, moved here basically in the 2nd grade, and I've been here ever since, except for when I was in the Air Force. I joined Air Force, and I was gone for 5 years, came back, married my wife, Leah. We've raised our 5 kids. My daughter, Lexi's with me tonight. She is my youngest, my only daughter. And my older boys, one of them is married, 2 of them are engaged to be married, and I have 1 granddaughter, one grandson that'll be here in December. So that's kind of my history there. I joke with people and I tell people I raised myself. What I mean by that, I came from a troubled home. My parents divorced when I was 12. And there was a lot of domestic violence and substance abuse in my home, maybe a little bit of mental illness, perhaps. And I was on a path where I kind of got in some trouble as a teenager, and I didn't do anything illegal that I got caught doing, but I hung out with the wrong crowd, and it was by the grace of God I graduated from high school. I graduated from Southeast High School. I actually got pretty good GPA, and I worked for a couple of years, and then that's when I joined the Air Force. I will tell you, it was by the grace of God, I'll say the church, the gospel, and the Air Force that got me on a better path. So I think about my childhood, I was on a bad path. Unfortunately, not all too different than a lot of people today. A lot of fatherlessness today, a lot of dysfunction in families. I learned recently that our divorce rate in Sedgwick County right now is 3 times higher than the marriage rate. That's a little unusual to hear that, but so when I say I had a troubled childhood, unfortunately, it's not that unusual for people to have troubled childhoods. But anyway, as a state legislator, when the county came to the state legislators, the South Central delegation in 2012, and said, if you guys don't find a solution to the problem, we're going to have to shut down the Judge Riddell Boys Ranch. You all know the Judge Riddell Boys Ranch out of Lake Afton? Okay? What that was is it was opened in 1959. It was keeping our criminogenic youth, boys. Criminogenic meaning these are kids who have committed serious crimes, sometimes personal and violent crimes, and they're considered medium to high risk for going to prison. And by the way, prison costs about $35,000 a year. And so if you can get involved in a kid's life when they're 14 years old, like I was, or 15 or 16 years old, and you can get them on a better path, you can avoid incarceration, and you can hopefully have some crime avoidance. And so the value of that is incalculable. The incarceration avoidance, we do know what that's worth. That's about $1 million a year, okay, by not sending kids to prison. The adage that you can either pay me now or pay me later, it does apply to this. And so the fact that we had this program, which was the best in the state, keeping kids out of prison, and it was saving $1 million a year. I didn't make that number up. That's what the School of Business at WSU did a calculation on that, did a study, and they're the ones that said it saved $1 million a year. So saved $1 million taxpayer dollars a year and kept kids out of prison. In my opinion, that's 2 reasons why we should keep the program, and it pays for itself. And it's a moral issue. I'm pro-family. I'm endorsed by Kansans for Life. I'm pro-life. And I'm pro-family. I love seeing families with dads and moms and kids. And get a kid on a better path. That's certainly what I think is a much better way to handle the problem. Well, anyway, so I took the action item seriously at the state legislature. I spent 3 years trying to pass legislation. I did get them $750,000 in 2014. The idea with that was trying to get them to get to 2015. And unfortunately, the county decided to spend that money at twice the rate that was intended. They spent that $750,000 in 6 months. This is a supplement to help bridge the program. They used that money for employee bonuses. True story. And I did pass legislation that would keep the ranch open. The day before that legislation took effect, the day before, they closed the ranch down. They closed the ranch down on June the 30th of 2014, and the legislation I passed took effect on July the 1st of 2014, same year. So obviously this is very political. Why would they be against keeping the ranch open? I passed legislation to keep it open. It would have helped the funding. It would have, I was moving it towards a performance-based funding model, okay? And I got them some money to subsidize them for a year to get that legislation moving forward. They closed it down because it was political, and that's unfortunate. I hate politics. You say, well, wait a minute, you're in politics. I know. I hate politics. Politics is what the problem is. We've got politicians out there that are pandering and arguing about stuff. It's about politics and self-advancement, so it's not about solving problems in the community. They're more focused on themselves and their friends and their donors, and that's what's wrong with politics. And so that's what bothered me greatly. So anyway, I was proud of the legislation we passed, disappointed that they did that. So I ran for this position in 2014. My opponent in that race was the guy that's running against me today. His name is Jim Skelton. He's my opponent today. He wants his old job back, and that's why I'm running for a second term. He wants to take me out. So I ask you a question: why would you take out somebody unless you have a reason to fire the incumbent? What has the incumbent done? Let's talk about that. I have what's called the 5 measures of government. Let me name them briefly, and I'll go back through them a second time. 5 measures of government: there's quality of life, infrastructure, public safety, human services, fiscal health. Let me break it down for you. Let's talk about public safety. Public safety, in my district, we've opened 2 new EMS stations in the last 3.5 years. We have lowered the mill levy by 0.15 mils for the fire district. We have new and improved 911 system. We're buying a new computer-aided, I forget what this is called. It's called CAD. It basically
design.
Well, that's what that would be in the engineering world, but the CAD in our world is about keeping track of crime statistics and crime history. For us, it's about keeping track of the crime stuff. I forget what CAD stands for, but we're funding a new CAD this year. We've upgraded the tornado sirens. We've upgraded the dispatch equipment at the Law Enforcement Training Center and in our downtown emergency management control center. Okay. All that's been updated. We have really worked hard on increasing our public safety salary for our sheriff's officers, especially in our detention deputies. So when it comes to public safety, by the way, the Joint Law Enforcement Training Center was a 25-year discussion. You might remember the Heartland training facility we talked about years ago? We didn't do that. That was a $30 million option. We ended up buying, jointly with Wichita, we did a $10 million solution, $5 million to the county, $5 million to the city. We saved $20 million. By the way, that project was led by the county under Richard Ranzau's chairmanship. That opened in 2017. We paid $5 million cash. We didn't even bond it out. This brand new facility is at Wichita State University's Innovation Campus. Okay? So again, more public safety. We got an agreement with the Regional Fire Training Center with Wichita. We ought to train with them. Unfortunately, it hasn't worked out very well. There's politics involved in that as well. But if you're going to train with the law enforcement agency, Sedgwick County and the city of Wichita, I think we should train with them on fire. That just makes sense. But they have their own regional fire training center. We have our foot in the door with an agreement that allows us to train there, although it's not working out for political reasons. But I got that done. So public safety, I would just tell you, is probably our number 1 priority in terms of government. So what we do, first thing we do is public safety. We got to keep our thugs under control. We have to manage the jail population. And so we're doing a good job with that. So I'm very proud of that. So I would tell you that overall, when you look at that measure of government, we're certainly better off today than we were 3.5 years ago. I hope you agree with me on that. What about human services? I already talked about the Judge Riddell Boys Ranch being closed, but did you know that I actually created and we opened a brand new program called the Judge Riddell Boys and Girls Alternative Program. We added girls in there because girls, frankly, in this culture today, they're doing the same thing the boys are doing. They're committing serious violent crimes themselves. So now we have the same population, but we added girls in there, and they have the same mission, and we have the same goal to get them to graduate, get a job, and pay taxes and stay out of prison. This program is at the Harry Street Mall. We have 150 kids in the program right now, sentenced there by judges. These are kids who come from extreme dysfunction, sexual, physical abuse, gangs, drugs, violence, neglect, absolute, total dysfunction, usually raising themselves like I did. And these kids need some help get on a better path like I did. For me, it was the Air Force and the church. These kids have something. It's called the Judge Riddell Boys and Girls Alternative Program. And it's working. These kids, the graduation rate out of that program right now exceeds what's happening outside that program. So we have the most troubled youth in this program. The graduation rates are higher than what's happening outside that program. That just tells you it's working. So I'm very proud of that. Community Crisis Center down on, I think it's 630 North Main or something around that area. That was a 10-year discussion. It used to be if you found someone hopped up on alcohol and drugs or has mental health problems, you took them to St. Joe or took them to the jail. In either case, we didn't have the right staff to handle the problem. So we created what's called the Community Crisis Center. This was another 10-year discussion. Community Crisis Center provides substance abuse and addiction treatments. It does detox, gets them connected to services, drug court, things like that. It also deals with mental health. And if you don't know this right now, suicide in Sedgwick County has doubled in the last 2 years. So you want to know the two biggest issues in Sedgwick County right now is substance abuse and addiction and mental health. And we need to be focused on that. So we're in the game now. We haven't solved the problem, but at least we're in the game. And so we're doing that now. That was a 10-year discussion. We got it started, and it's working very well. We have professional staff. We have doctors and nurses. We have connected all kinds of community services. And at least we have a place now to take our citizens when they're dealing with those problems. We have our own staff. We can get them on a better path. Okay? The Child Advocacy Center deals with human trafficking, internet crimes against children, and exploiting missing children's unit. We have staff over there. We're funding that now. We gave $1 million for a new facility, and we have staff over there. We're funding that now. So when it comes to public safety, human services, we're doing very well. The health department, their immunizations is way up. In 2015, you may have heard in the news, we slashed and burned the health department. Well, not really. We cut about $700,000 out of programs that frankly didn't have any value. They weren't doing things to help our population stay healthy and thrive. They were programs things like workplace exercise programs. Well, the workplace can do that on their own, for example. Okay, they have programs in the K through 12 school system. Well, the K through 12 school system has their own funding stream. They don't need the Sedgwick County to provide that service for them. They can do that on their own. And on it goes. And so this slash and burn, they say we're going to kill 65 people a year. Absolutely not true. Our immunizations right now are actually higher now. We had 3 programs before they provided immunizations. Rolled them into one, more efficiency, providing more immunizations today than we ever have. You may have heard we cut WIC, Women's Infant Children Program, for nutrition program for women and children. Absolutely not true. What we did was there's actually a dwindling program. The population that uses those services is going down over time. Every year, slightly lower population getting the services or the benefits. And so every year we end up with this big pile of money at the end of the year that's used for the administration of the program called WIC. And so at the end of the year we have to turn that money back into the state. We can't use it to build a bridge. We can't use it for the zoo. We have to turn it back into the state. It's their money. We didn't have a way to use the money. So we said in 2015, let's not take as much money. Let's take less, take enough, and we'll give back the extra money on the front end of the year rather than the back end of the year. That's the cut they're talking about. We still have a WIC program, and everybody who's qualified for WIC benefits, whether they're a legal citizen or an illegal citizen, as designed by the state and federal government, they get their benefits regardless. Okay? We didn't stop WIC. We didn't cut WIC. We just returned the excess administration funds. That's the cut you may have heard about. So the reality is we've got a very thriving human services system within our Sedgwick County government. Third thing is quality of life. Who heard in 2015 we slashed and burned the Sedgwick County Zoo? I had kids come to our meetings and said, "We're sad you guys are going to close the zoo." Well, that's ridiculous. The zoo, every single year I've been there, has received more funding from the county every single year I've been there. The problem was, in 2013, the former commissioner signed a funding agreement with the Sedgwick County Zoo that included a 45% increase in funding. Now think about that. That's a big increase. How much do you think inflation's gone up in the 5 years from 2014 to 2018? A few percentage points. Excuse me. A few percentage points. Why is it you would give a single organization within your county government a 45% increase? Because it's political. Okay? We need to provide money to the zoo. Absolutely. We love the zoo. I have a membership there. My daughter goes to the zoo. We love the zoo. But let's face it, that's a bit of a silly agreement. By the way, let me mention this. Before 2001, they were mill levy funded. It was 1.391 mills of property tax. Whatever that calculated out to. 1.391 mills. That's how much money the zoo got until 2001. So going clear back to the 1960s when the zoo was first started. Okay? They've always gotten 1.391 mills. That's always been the number until 2001. By the way, that means if the economy grows, what happens to their money? It goes up, doesn't it? The economy shrinks a little bit, what happens to their money? They got to tighten their belt a little bit, right? In other words, they've got a connection to the same things we have a connection to. When the economy thrives, they get more money. When the economy shrinks, they got to tighten their belts like we do, okay? But in 2001, we went to these 5-year funding agreements, and there was 8 of them, 8 5-year funding agreements that took us to 2013. And by the way, in 2 years prior to that, in 2011 and 2012, there was no funding agreement. The zoo didn't have one. So think about this. Between 2001 to 2011, and then in 2013, that was 8 funding agreements for 5 years each. Now, how could that be? Because every one of those agreements was canceled. And they were not able to be executed. So in 2013, when I got there, we were looking at a $10 million shortfall, having to lay off the sheriff's officers. We decided to cancel the contract with the zoo that my former commissioner signed that was at a 45% increase. Now that made some people mad. They said, "You guys don't love the zoo." Well, I love the zoo, but it's not the priority. The priority is public safety. Priority is human services. The zoo, it's a quality of life issue, but it's not the priority. And so we passed, as chairman, I negotiated a new zoo funding agreement in 2016. I was chairman that year. We negotiated that and handed it to the zoo in July of 2016. By the way, that was before the election. They received that agreement. They did not agree to it. They didn't come up for a vote until February of 2017. Why would that be? Well, we had the elections to get through, didn't we?
I was going to say, they hoped the elections would go.
That's right. Did you know we agreed to that? The zoo approved it unanimously, didn't change a single word. The county commissioners approved it unanimously, didn't change a single word. That contract sat there for almost 9 months, waiting for it to be approved because of politics. I hate politics. I told you that before. Today, yes, and by the way, in 2016 was the best year on record for the Sedgwick County Zoo. They had record level attendance, 710,000 visitors, record level revenue from us every year, I said that before, plus record level revenue from the community, gate revenue, memberships, food sales, gift shop sales, and benefactors giving money to the zoo as donors. Best year they've ever had was in 2016. So this idea that we're hurting the zoo and the zoo's going to suffer and they're going to close, what a pack of lies that was. It's not true. The zoo is thriving. By the way, the word they use is they say the zoo is thriving. It's doing very well. Okay? What about Exploration Place? It's also thriving. They've also received more money. We also provide $8 million to WSU. We provide $4 million to WATC. Now it's called WSU Tech. So altogether about 12, almost $13 million going to higher ed out of the county. Okay? So again, when you talk about quality of life, we're all over it. We're doing job skills training. We're doing economic development. We're doing Sedgwick County Zoo, Exploration Place, Interest Bank Arena, Sedgwick County Park, Lake Afton, the Sedgwick County Historical Museum, the African American Museum, Northeast Park. All of that falls under Sedgwick County, and they're all doing very well. So, I already talked about public safety, talked about human services, I talked about quality of life, infrastructure. Right here, Kellogg and 235, it's almost done. We're ahead of schedule and under budget. By the way, we paid cash for that, and not a single penny from the city went into that project. And then you notice it's inside the city. That's a county project. $103 million, and 11.3 of that came from Sedgwick County out of some sales tax funds. We paid cash. We did not go into debt for that. So infrastructure, we have 600 miles of roads and 600 bridges. We're actually a very aggressive maintenance program. If you look around and you see a road that's dilapidated and broken, first thing you got to be thinking about, is this a city road or a county road or a state road? Because most of cities in Sedgwick County are having trouble with their street maintenance, especially Wichita. But the county infrastructure, our roads and bridges, some of the best infrastructure anywhere in the state of Kansas for county government is in Sedgwick County. We have the best infrastructure. So this idea that we are not managing our infrastructure, absolutely not true. We're doing very well. And by the way, not to get onto a side issue here, but Wichita has over $1 billion in debt. About $600 million of that is in special assessment bonds for developments, but about $400 million of that is bonded debt that they've taken on for things like this, the library or whatever. Okay, they have a lot of debt. When Carl Brewer gave his State of the City address in January 2015, Carl Brewer said, the mayor said, that Wichita has $10 billion in infrastructure shortfall. The roads and infrastructure of Wichita need some help. Okay, I'm not bad at them, but when you look around, you see a bad road. Think to yourself: is it a city road or is it a county road? Our county infrastructure is top notch. So I've given you four of the measures. The last one, of course, is fiscal health. We paid off 20% of our debt. Can you name anybody, any governing body, anywhere in the nation you can think of, anywhere that's paying off debt? Anybody? You can't, because I don't think anybody else is doing it. How are we doing that? Because we stopped digging the hole. Politicians love ribbon cuttings and turning the shovel of dirt over. They love those things, okay? And that always happens with debt. We put that on your children's and grandchildren's futures. And we in Sedgwick County said, you know what? If we can't pay cash, if it's not an emergency, and we don't have cash, let's just not do it right now. Let's just put it off a little bit. Or better yet, let's find a cheaper way, more efficient way to make it happen. Case in point, Richard Rainzaw's not here tonight, but the EMS Post 8, North Wichita, 53rd Street North, just west of I-135. Staff recommendation was to bulldoze that facility. It's a brick and mortar building, by the way. They wanted to bulldoze that facility. It's actually situated on top of an old landfill. They wanted to bulldoze that because the windows were leaking, they needed some paint, the roof was leaking, and stormwater was infiltrating the north side, and there were some mold problems inside that building. And the fire station that used to be there was moved to another building, so the building was really not the right configuration. It was really too large. So rather than replacing that building and buying a different piece of property and raising almost a $2 million, constructing another $2 million facility, we decided to repurpose the extra space for storage, store the sheriff's vehicles, like the SWAT mobile and things like that, in that building, and those extra 6 bays. And we refurbished the building, put new countertops in there, new cupboards, remodeled the bathrooms, made them AD accessible, put some paint on the building, fixed the stormwater issues, fixed the mold problems, fixed the roof. Total cost $400,000. We saved $1.6 million. Wow. That happened last week. We did cut the ribbon on that last week. Paid cash, by the way. Didn't bond that out. Because we got smart leadership right now in the county. Okay? We cut our debt capacity limit in half. We used to allow ourselves 20% of our budget could be for debt. In other words, debt service. And right now we're down to about 10%, maybe just a little bit under 10% right now, like maybe 9.5. I'm not sure exactly the number. We're down around that number right now. We actually passed a resolution to cut our debt capacity limit in half. We used to allow 20. We want to cut. Actually, Richard Ranzaw, myself, and Carl Peterjohn lowered it down to 9%. The new commission came in 2016, raised it back up to 10%. I voted against that, by the way. But lowering our debt capacity limit. So that was so fiscal health. Let's talk about. We lowered the mill levy on the fire district this last week, in August the 15th. Lowered the mill levy for the fire district by 0.15 mils. We're lowering the mill levy for the Sedgwick County government by 0.601 mils in 2022 because we're paying off debt. We don't need as much money. Return that extra money back to the taxpayers. I'm not against using debt for proper uses. Anybody listen to Dave Ramsey? I do. If you have an extraordinary, most people buy a home using debt, 30-year mortgage. Why do you do that? Because it's an extraordinary purchase. It's very expensive. You need a place to live. So you buy the house and you live in it while you're paying it off. That makes sense for a house. But you ought to limit yourselves. 15 years, a certain amount of money down, and don't use your debt for things that are silly. You would not use debt for your dinner tonight. Please don't do that. Okay? Don't put that on a credit card and make minimum payments. People might do that. That's what cities do. They bond that whatever they can. And so we don't do that in Sedgwick County any longer. So coming to fiscal health, public safety, infrastructure, quality of life, human services, all 5 measures of government better off today than they were 3.5 years ago. And then, the second thing I would just tell you, I worked for 3 years to pass the election audit bill, got that passed. Governor signed that. I personally spent time in Topeka working for the truth and taxation law. And then in 2015, they passed the tax lid, but it was a mess. I as chairman in 2016, found the solutions for the tax lid law. We actually wrote that up, went to Topeka, introduced our solutions to the problems in that law, and got that through the committee. And we testified in favor of that, and it got signed by the governor. We fixed the tax lid. So it's actually a usable law now. So it comes to transparency, accountability. I didn't even talk about that. Our meetings are on YouTube now. Used to you almost couldn't find them before. We have newsletters now. We're more accessible. Used to be that you had to sign up 9 days before our meetings if you wanted to speak before the county commission. We got rid of that rule. Show up, raise your hand, you can speak. Don't have to even sign up if you don't want to. Just walk in, raise your hand, we'll let you speak. So accessibility, transparency, accountability. Those are all very important ideas. And then things like just conservative values, efficiency and effectiveness, making sure we're doing things that make sense. We've eliminated a number of regulations in the county since I've been there, unnecessary regulations. I can talk about those with details if you guys are interested, but that's a lot of stuff we've done. Well, the county's on a good path right now. A question would be to the voters, why would you want to fire me and put my former commissioner back in charge? I have to tell you, he has a ugly past. He has been arrested for domestic violence. He has violence against his daughter and his wife, reported in the Wichita Eagle. If you don't believe me, just Google his name and type in arrest and Wichita Eagle, and you'll see the stories pop up. He used his position to strong-arm a local business called the Grand Chapel for his daughter's wedding. That was in the paper. He was late for quite a few meetings. In fact, I looked up, I think he missed, I believe, 7. He was either significantly late or entirely missed 7 meetings the first year he was a commissioner. One of those times they had to send the sheriff to they had to fetch the sheriff, bring him in because they were expecting a 3-2 vote. They brought him in and they did the 3-2 vote because they needed his vote. Irresponsible commissioner. And I'll just tell you finally, I think he has a drug and alcohol problem today. I think he's got a lot of problems, but I think anger is one of his problems, and he's got some legal issues going back. I have a copy of his police report from the city of Wichita. It's 87 pages long. 28 different police reports in that total package, going back 20 years. 28 times he's had his name written down by the police. So may I ask you once again, why do you want him to be a commissioner once again? I think he's wrong for Sedgwick County. The county's in a good path right now. I've done a good job, and I think I need to be elected for another term. With that, I'll be open this up to questions.
Okay, we have a very limited amount of time for questions, but
Maybe 1 or 2 questions?
Yeah, we can take 1 or 2. Art, go
Yes,
ahead.
sir.
Recently, I attended a meeting over at KFL. We had Judge Kevin Smith talking
Yes.
about adoptive services and
Right.
parent services. And he pointed out what some of the current needs of that program are, where the deficiencies were. Where do you see that as far as what you work at?
Well, I know Judge Smith, and he's very passionate about that. That really probably isn't as much of a county issue, although I'm very aware of that. I brought Judge Smith to my church recently, and he talked about the CASA program. We need more court-appointed special advocates for children, absolutely. I think our foster care system is a disaster in Kansas. It's hard to get that right. It's tough. I don't want to be too aggressive taking away kids from good families and good parents. But on the other hand, I don't want to leave children in dangerous situations. And it's almost impossible to do that exactly right. The question is, if you're going to err, what side do you err on? That's a great debate. And it's not for me. That's a state issue and the judge's issue, although I am very concerned about that. I have lots of people in my district who have lost their children. I'm very concerned about that. The reality is, I'll do everything I can to help moms and dads and kids stay together, but they got to do it in a way that protects those children. And I think Judge Smith has a very tough job. And so my hat's off to him, and I hope that they can advocate for the right solutions. I don't know what those solutions are. It's really kind of outside my normal umbrella of things to advocate for.
What's the current status of the Judge Riddell Ranch right now?
That's bulldozed. If you want to go camp out there, you can go out there and camp out where it was. It's gone, unfortunately. That multi-million-dollar facility could have been used for homeless programs or mental health or substance abuse programs or whatever, job skills training, or even, how about law enforcement training? Could be used for all kinds of things. How about a regional fire training center out there for the county? Could use it for all kinds of things, but it got bulldozed, unfortunately. I was very much against that. We do have the replacement program, of course, for the boys and the girls at the Harry Street Mall. It's not residential, it's community-based, and it's working. But the actual old facility, it's gone. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so on that community crisis center that
Yeah.
you're talking about, is that the patient services, do they pay for that, or does the insurance cover that?
They do what they can. We will bill Medicare, Medicaid if we can, or if there's other insurance, we'll bill them if we can. We do write off a lot of that. We'll provide those services regardless of someone's ability to pay. But if there's a way for us to get payment back, we'll do that. One thing I should mention, I found out like 6 or 7 years ago, the county commission made a decision to outlaw, if you will, maybe that's too strong of a word, maybe disallow is a better word, air transportation, air ambulance services in Sedgwick County. So if you're across the county line and you have a shooting victim or a drowning victim or a electrocution or a car accident and you need to get to the Wesley Hospital quick or St. Francis quick, we would not allow the air ambulance to get you if you're inside Sedgwick County. But as long as you're across the county line, they're good to go. I found that out, so I changed that. I got that changed about 2 or 3 weeks ago, passed a resolution to re-allow, and with a contract, with a memorandum of understanding or whatever, an agreement with the air ambulance services, they can operate in Sedgwick County once again. I think people probably have died because we didn't allow that for a while. Again, why would we not allow that? Because it's politics. Politics got in the way. Any other questions before I quit?
No.
Listen, yes, sir.
Yeah, just real quick. You talked about a lot of stuff even I wasn't aware, although I've heard you speak a number of times. How's the newspaper, the media treating what you've said versus Skelton's record? Obviously, if they didn't like him, we'd all heard of it 10 times by now. So I'm thinking, are you the media disfavored between the two of you?
I expect the Eagle will endorse him, which is probably, in my opinion, they usually endorse the most liberal, left-leaning candidates, and that's why I expect they'll endorse him. By the way, I didn't mention this earlier, but he's running as an independent this time. He was elected as a Republican before, although I've always argued he never really voted like a Republican. He and Tim Norton have almost identical voting records. Okay, so I don't think he's ever really been a Republican, but at least he's a little more true to himself. He's moving to the left officially. Now he's running as an independent. The newspaper has written a couple of articles about his irresponsibility, not showing up to meetings. They have one story regarding his arrest record. I mentioned that a minute ago. They document several other arrests that happened before he was even elected to the city council. And so there's a number of articles out there, and you can't run away from that because they are published articles. They're available for anybody to see. Okay, your criminal record, if you don't know that, is open to public. Public can get access to that. So I have access to his public record on his criminal history and his police reports, and so I have access to that. The Wichita Eagle, in my opinion, if they were worth their salt, they would write an article on this. Now, just to contrast myself, I'm a married man. I've been married for 28 years. I got 5 grown kids. They're all successful. I have 3 degrees. I have an aviation history. I'm an Air Force veteran. I have a good leadership record. My degrees are in leadership as well as manufacturing efficiencies, if you want to call it that, industrial technology. So I think I've got good connections to the community. I've demonstrated leadership. I've done some great things. Look at the character of my opponent. What characterizes him? I think he's a good old boy. He's politically connected. He's in the pockets of certain donors and developers around the city. That's who's making his campaign move forward. He's got anger problems. He's got drug and substance abuse histories. In my opinion, I can tell you what, I can't prove that from the Eagle, but I can prove that, if you want to say, from people's making comments on Facebook. Okay, I believe it's true. I've talked to lots of people who've experienced him
Well,
apparently not in his own right mind. And so I think he has that history.
You didn't hit the big one. He has honesty problems.
And I think he has honesty problems. Yeah, that's right. And you experienced that personally, Mark. So the reality is, I wish the Wichita Eagle would do an actual real story on this, although I don't expect that they will. A comparison story between him and I. But I don't think they will. And I should also name this. You may or may not be aware, but Bob Weeks did an article a few weeks ago that there's a number of people named in the lawsuit, but he's one of them, that there's people who are named specifically for knowingly and willingly defrauding taxpayers when they refinanced special assessment bonds. He is named in that lawsuit also. So, this is just a long history, in my opinion, of a lot of things that are wrong with Mr. Skelton. And I think that if you're a good old boy and you want someone to be a rubber stamp, and he happens to be the rubber, he's on your side, on the rubber stamp side, yeah, I'd say fund him, and you can know he'll do exactly what you want him to do. You want someone who's independently think. He calls himself independent, but he's controlled by people. We know who they are. I think I'm the independent, frankly.
He's independent for one reason, and that is because he will not he would never win a primary in the Republican Party again.
Correct.
And that is why he's no longer Republican.
I think he was told he needed to get out of the race in 2014 because he couldn't win the Republican primary. And they went and found someone they thought could beat me. The person they got to run against me didn't win a single precinct in his own home city. And ultimately, I beat him approximately 2-1. So that was the Republican primary. So they think they'll do better in the general election. Maybe they will. We'll see. But I'm in it to win it. I need your help. If you know anybody in my district that could put a sign out, please tell them to get a sign out. I need that type of help. If you know anybody that's got some deep pockets and can donate a little bit of money to my campaign, I definitely need that help too.
I don't have a deep pocket, but the little bit I got.
Thank you very much. I
How do you
appreciate
make
that
your
much.
checks out?
Just Howell for County Commission. Thank you very much. And I appreciate that help. You guys can help me out. Let me just say one thing as I wrap this up. The county, in my opinion, look, I love the Kavanaugh stuff that's going on right now. I think he's a great man. I hope he gets confirmed. I hope he does. But the national politics is so broken. Washington's broken. The Republicans and Democrats are both to be blamed. They're all part of the problem up there. Okay? Turn off that national news. Start paying attention to local politics, because you guys can make a difference at the local level. And there's 45 agencies under the county government. We spend $440 million. I'll argue we have the biggest impact on your life, from public safety to infrastructure to quality of life, human services, and spending $440 million of your money to do that. We have the biggest impact on your life. We really do. So if you really want to help your community and help your neighbors, help your grandkids, turn off the CNN and the Fox News and MSNBC and start thinking about the local politics. Almost everybody is focused on national stuff, and virtually nobody knows what's going on locally. We have the biggest impact on your life. Help me win. I need your help.
Well, let's give Jim a big hand.
Thank you.
Are you going to stay for the film? I'm sorry, say it again.
I said this wasn't bad for PBS, and Frontline does a good job often, but it was pretty clear that.
I think Frontline is kind of in a group by themselves. I mean, this is the best of the best. Frontline's pretty good. This is the best they've ever done, as far as I'm concerned.
The bias was there, but it wasn't.
The material just overcame that. They couldn't do anything with it. So, hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. I wish they would have had a little more time. They might have put it in the NFRA convention in Tennessee, where I met him and talked to him for 90 minutes, and where he won second place. Ted Cruz got first place. But on the popular vote, Trump won first and second place. And you say, how could that happen? Well, there was 2 separate voting booths, and for the public that just came in, there was about 5,000 people. They all had to pay like $3 or something to get in. And they had to go to vote for your first place candidate here and your second place candidate here. And because they wanted to keep the line moving. Well, everybody went in, and Trump won first place, among the public, and second place. And Cruz was way down on the list. But Ted Cruz had gotten to the delegates, they had contacted me. They tried to get me to be a Ted Cruz. And I said, I'm already committed to Rick Santorum in Pennsylvania. I can't move. And then Rick didn't show up. And I said, well, Trump is going to show up. I'm going to be there. So I switched. I went there, drove down there, drove through halfway through Missouri before I got a phone call. And they said, well, your candidate just backed out. And I said, had I known that a day sooner, I probably wouldn't have gone. And I said, well, if Rick is backing out, then I'm backing the wrong candidate. I said, if he's going to back out just because Trump is coming, he's got to not only go there, he's got to outshine Trump if he's going to, have my vote.
Is that why he didn't go, because he was too?
Yeah, his campaign,
high-class
Rick Santorum's own campaign killed it. They said, we don't want you to be run over by the crowd of people trying to get, pictures with Trump or something. And they said it's going to look bad. It's going to be a lot of bad video, if they're running over you or running past you to try to get to Trump. And I said, well, say something brighter than Trump. Be better than him. I was upset with Rick Santorum for not, you don't back out before the fight begins, and that's what he did. So anyway, it was a good, it was a presidential preference convention. It was in Nashville, Tennessee, and when I got the picture, have everybody seen the picture of him and I? If you're not on Facebook, you might have not seen it. I can show it to you. But anyway, he took all the time in the world with me. He knew he needed my vote. I was one of 91, and myself and Sharon Ford, who is now our national chairman. Her and I, we had over the years, past 2 or 3 years, we had not been really that close. Sharon and I had oftentimes been on opposite sides. For example, I supported Sharon Angle from Nevada. I nominated her for chair of the national organization. And Sharon Angle and Sharon Ford is like, I don't know what, they just don't go together. I mean, they're like cats and dogs. They just don't, they're going to fight. If they're doing anything together, they're going to be fighting about it. So I often was on Sharon Angle's side, but Sharon Angle was supporting Ted Cruz. And I have nothing against Ted Cruz, don't get me wrong. I just loved what Trump was saying, and so, after he answered the abortion questions really well, and he answered, everything, and he was honest about it. He didn't come out and say he was the strongest pro-lifer, but, I just couldn't help myself. I said, I'm gonna support Trump. And the only other one that was really wanting to support Trump was Sharon Ford. So in about 5 minutes, Sharon became my best friend. And, I took all the people that will listen to me. I'm an old timer there. I've been going to these for a long time. And she had a few of hers, and we put ours together. And, pretty soon Trump went from like way down on the list of 16, all the way up. And had we gone for a few more votes, we could have probably gotten over the top. But Ted Cruz won it fair and square, and that was the news. But that was only half the news. The popular vote, first and second place. And that's pretty darn important. The popular vote went first place to Trump and second place to Trump, and Ted Cruz was like way down on the list. And so it was interesting news. But I wish they'd had that. And that was his, before that, the media could say he's never done anything in public, he's never been anything political. Now he won. His first political fight was the convention I was at, and I'm proud to have been an organizer, doing a little I could. If I wasn't there, he would still be president. But the point is, everything in life happens through a certain channel, and this channel, I had a little tiny bit to do with it, and I'm very proud of that.
8:49.
Okay, all right, we gotta get out of here. I got 11 minutes to pack her up here, so.
Oh, wow, we're gonna be out.
Yeah. All right, thank you, Brian.
You want to go ahead and
We'll just.
that Mason adjourn?
Yeah, I need an adjournment motion from Art, second. Who's seconding the adjournment? All right, we've got a second, and Jerry, right? Jerry's seconding, and all in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed, same sign. We are adjourned until October.